Recording in
Hey, Dawson, just doing a sound check. You got me okay?
Got you, Craig.
I'm posting that link to this position. I'm waiting for it. 5 right 20% time pressure. Yeah.
Good evening, leaders. We will begin in a few minutes. We're just letting people into the room. Bear with us for just a minute or two so we can try to get as many people in prior to the start.
What's that?
Elijah, I think you should talk to me.
All right, we're going to get going. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. I see a lot of familiar names, see a lot of new names. Welcome to the inaugural 22-23 outreach. This is our third year of the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance, and the ultimate goal is to bring all the winter community-based youth associations together in an effort to promote compliance, make sure that communication can be done at a high level, have connectivity with everybody throughout the state of Minnesota when it comes to winter community-based basketball, consistency in team identification, a central clearinghouse for MYBA tournaments, having concise results. So that, as you can see, it's all the C's that we've put together. We have a lot of big news tonight through our correspondence. You've seen there's been some changes to the team composition guidelines. And we want to make sure that we can get as much information to you as possible tonight. We know it's only the end of June, but we also know that as the summer goes by, we get closer and closer to the start of the 2022-2023 winter community-based season. My name is Dawson Blank. If some of you don't know me, I'm the executive director at the Minnesota Youth Athletic Services. I've been at MYAS since 1999. The MYAS, our role within the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance is to facilitate the ability to protect and serve winter community-based youth basketball. And we're simply here to steer the ship. We are not here to dictate. We, as you can see, the slogan of by the associations for the associations. Jeremy Innes is on. He's our associate director at the MYS, and he does a lot of the work related to work with the task force, as you hear about, and also work with the board of advisors for updates to the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance. We have done a lot of these virtual outreaches over the last 3 years. We're excited to have, like we did last year, over 170 associations a part of the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance. So we're going to get right into it. Couple things to note. If you have questions as we go through this, please put it into the chat. We'll make sure to try to save those if we do not get to any answers. We may not answer them all tonight. We have a lot of information to get through. If you think about it after the meeting and you want to ask a question, you'll see our email addresses at the end of this presentation. And you can feel free to get a hold of us at any time. We are, again, here to assist and guide and help in any way possible as we move closer to the winter community-based season. So we'll get right into it right now. Agenda, as you saw, we have some things that we want to share with everybody related to some strategic partners that have some value adds for all of your organizations. We're going to talk about the membership for this season, the updated or revised team composition guidelines, some best practices to keep in mind for your tournament directors. Jeremy is going to really quickly talk about player fees and entry fees and what to keep in mind and things that we could possibly do to assist in that process so people have a better understanding on where that is. We're going to talk about some focus areas that we hope you all buy into and adopt, because it's something that is impacting all of winter community-based youth basketball, along with youth sports in general. And then at the end, really quickly, we're going to talk about some highlighted programs and services that the Minnesota Youth Athletic Services is implementing or continuing for this next season. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy, and Jeremy is going to get into the membership and talk through the specifics about the team composition, the revisions, the things related to the policies that are in place, how things that are put in place by the task force and the board of advisors on how to assist the transition from where you live and or attend school to the primary guideline of where you attend school. So I'm going to turn over to Jeremy Innes. Actually, before that, I got ahead of myself. I would like to introduce Dr. Craig Perry. A lot of you may remember Craig Perry if you've been on your boards for the last few years. Craig was instrumental in assisting us as we created the MYBA Return to Participation Manual, along with all the guidelines and protocol related to COVID. And that was amazing as we all came together in mid-January of 2020 and we got through a abbreviated season together. That's an example of how the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance can impact and maintain a streamlined process of communication and everybody being together as we move through that season. So Dr. Craig Perry, I'd turn it over to you and you can just give your brief USCA minute.
Well, thanks, Dawson. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody joining the call tonight. We're super excited as we head into this year's third year of the MYBA. We have a lot of education, health, and wellness and safety resources that will be value adds for the members of the MYBA. And we just really think it's going to help you as you best prepare your coaches and provide resources for your parents and kids. Dr. Chad Asplin would have been with us tonight. His travel plans changed. He's actually just coming back from Belgium with USA Basketball. One of the keys that we're going to have at the next meeting will come from Dr. Chad Asplin. He's the head medical officer for USA Basketball. He's going to bring to us the next time this group meets some of the things that they're seeing at the international level, the national level, and then some of the things that we should focus on with the community-based associations like you have. So been working hard with Dawson and his team at the MYAS to get ready to bring some resources to you in health, wellness, and safety. We've identified some key areas. Everybody right now is looking for mental health support, some general health and wellness support, and we'll look in some other areas as well as the team at MYAS bring more to us. So just real quickly, we're excited to be working with you to bring health and wellness and safety education and resources, and looking forward to the next meeting when we can bring Dr. Chad Asplin in and he'll share some things with his involvement with USA Basketball at the national and international levels, and then bring it right back to your association. So Dawson, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I appreciate it. I just please understand that USCA is a partner of the MYBA, and they're here to help provide resources and best practices for your associations. There will be other offerings that you can take advantage at a reduced rate for your organization if you choose. And like Dr. Craig Perry said, it's going to be available for coaches, players, and parents. So look for more information on that. Thank you, Dr. Craig Perry. All right, now got ahead of myself a minute ago, but I'm turning over to Jeremy Innes, MYAS Associate Director.
Thank you, Dawson. This slide, we're going to talk about the MYBA membership. The membership renewal is open. We've had a large number of associations already join. Thank you for getting on board and doing that early. The one thing, the biggest advantage of joining, renewing your membership for the MYBA is getting your tournament listed onto the tournament index. The tournament index on our website is by far the most visited basketball page that we have. So if you don't have your tournament up there yet, it's definitely something that we would recommend doing. In these next couple slides, I'm going to talk about a couple of the most important tabs, especially early on in the summer season within the MYBA portal. Das, if you go to the next slide, please. All right, so while you're in the MYBA portal, especially the association admins that are on this video tonight, if you can remember to please keep your association admins and board members up to date, that would be wonderful. That's where we build our communication list, and that's where when we send out emails for meetings or updates, that's where we pull that information from. So every once in a while we get an email from somebody, please take me off your list, no longer involved. We'd really appreciate it if the association admins could keep that updated for us and help us out with that. MYBA admins, they are the users that can access the MYBA portal. And when they're in the MYBA portal, they can access team rosters, the tournament index, update board members, register for different MYS tournaments, that sort of thing. And there is a way for current admins to manage the other admins or users with their association. Once you get on that MYBA landing page for your association, click on Manage Owners, and you can grant access to other users that have a user account within the MYAS platform. You can also remove admins if they're no longer with your association, or maybe taking on a different role where they don't need access to the MYBA portal. Board members, that's helpful for us so we can communicate with multiple people from associations, especially if we've got, specific information, maybe for tryouts or tournament information, that sort of thing. We know who to contact. The one thing about being listed as a board member, it does not grant access to the MYBA portal. On the board members page, that's just a page where it's got some titles, some names and contact information, but there aren't any user accounts attached to that page. All right, we'll jump right into it here, the team composition guidelines. There's been a lot of talk over the last handful of years about our previous guidelines and making them, I guess, more enforceable. Trying to make it so, you know, those team composition guidelines that we had in place, we could actually follow up with, you know, if there was a report that a player shouldn't be playing on a team that they're on, we request documentation. And with the old guidelines, it kind of made it difficult for us to be able to do that. But what we did is, from our MYBA Basketball Board of Advisors, we created a subcommittee. And that task force was called the MYBA Compliance and Eligibility Task Force. We've relied on that group in previous years for different eligibility situations that have come up throughout the season. But before we got into the next season, we really wanted to look through our guidelines and see if we could make any improvements. First bullet point under the reasons is the residency component was very difficult for that task force to verify, to prove, to feel good about the documentation that we were receiving was actually legitimate and proved where that player resided. A lot of times we get utility bills or something to that effect, and you know, we just weren't 100% sure that that document was really proving that that player lived there. And so that residency component was something that we really looked at. It's a lot easier to verify where somebody goes to school, and those documents are available, you know, or even a copy of a student ID, something to that effect. And I know most associations already had, you know, if you go to school within that association, you're eligible. But as I mentioned before, the main component that has changed is the residency. And I'll get through some of the finer details as we move through the slides here. All right, so what happened, how we got to this point is shortly after the grade state tournaments back in March, we started discussions with with the task force, a group of the board of advisors, on how we could improve the current team composition guidelines and just kind of make sure the playing field was level for all of the teams and associations participating. So what we did that with that task force, we met multiple times, talked about some different things, and we put a proposal together that we presented to the Basketball Board of Advisors. And those guidelines, you know, we did move away from the residency component, as I had mentioned, but we presented that document to our Board of Advisors. And by unanimous vote, the 21 members of our MYBA Board of Advisors voted to approve the new team composition guidelines. In parentheses here, it states MYAS members do not have voting rights in that. Those 21 members are made up from associations from around the state, alphabetically, all the way from, you know, Apple Valley through Zimmerman, listed down at the bottom of the page. We really felt that we had a good representation of, you know, different associations, metro, suburbs, outstate, associations that had different situations unique to where they are. So that's how these new team composition guidelines came to be. I do see a question in the chat about private school. We will get to that coming up here in a little bit. As I had mentioned, for the new guidelines, the primary determining factor for player eligibility is the school that they attend. Removes the residency component in most situations. We did build out some exceptions for players that attend private schools or who attend home or online school. I don't have the complete rule listed here in front of me. The complete guidelines are posted on our website. And there is a separate section for private school, homeschool, and online school. And the private school, just to run through that real quickly, Those players that attend a private school, they've actually got 3 different options for associations that they can play for. Number one, they can play if their school that they're attending has a team. Providence Academy is one that comes to mind. Benilde St. Margaret's, they enroll students in the elementary and or middle school grades. So as long as all the players attend that school, they can play on a school team. So that's one option for those players that attend a private school. The second one is to play with the association where they reside. So if the school is located in one community and they are in the attendance area of one school and they live in a different community, they can play with the community where they reside. But with that, if there's any documentation that needs to be requested for that player, what we're going to look at is the address that the school has on file for that player. And in any situation that we revert back to residency, we are going to want to see documentation from the school that player attends that lists their home address. And I know schools will list multiple addresses for a player if indeed it is a split family situation, but one of those addresses does need to be listed on that document provided by the school. The third option is that player could play with the association where the school is located. Using Providence Academy, for example, I believe that's in Wayzata's attendance area. The school is physically located within the Wayzata high school attendance area. So that player would also have the opportunity to play with Wayzata traveling basketball based on where the school is located. So the 3 different options that a private school player has: play with school team, play with where they live, or where the school is located. Definitely check with the local associations to see if they are going to accept a player that's attending a private school within their attendance area. You definitely want to clear that up and confirm before tryouts happen. Dawson, anything else to add on that slide? I know I threw out a lot of information to people on there. Like I said, it's all spelled out on the team composition document that's posted on our website. Just go to our homepage, click on basketball, go to MYBA, and then you want to click on team composition. It looks like Dawson linked it in the chat there. So thank you for doing that. The other situation that we wanted to address is there's multiple school districts around the metro and possibly throughout the state that have multiple high schools within a single school district. So in those situations, we run into oftentimes where there might be a middle school within that district that the kids attending that middle school, it's bringing kids in from both high school attendance area, or it might split off. Like most middle schools, all the kids that go to this middle school are going to go to the same high school. But when we run into this situation where there's multiple high schools within a school district, sometimes those middle schools will have kids that'll go to both high school A and high school B. And in that situation, we are allowing the player to choose which association they want to play for. They don't have the right just to say, and I know there's some school districts that have 3, 4, 5 high schools within a district. They can't choose to play with any and all of those high schools. It can only be the ones that the school that they're attending feeds into. That's the key component. The school they're attending, which high school does it feed into? If it's multiple high schools, then they can choose between usually the 2 different high schools that middle school will feed into. Now we get into the player transfer policy. A lot of people refer to the player transfer policy as the waiver. A handful of years ago, we really tried to make a push to get away from the waiver just because it got confused too many times with liability and that sort of thing. A player transfer is an opportunity for a player to request to play with a bordering association. The main components of the player transfer is that it's got to be a bordering association. We really want, a handful of years ago, we saw some situations where players were hopping all the way across the metro area or even from outstate Minnesota down to a metro association. And, that just doesn't fit the mold of what winter community-based basketball should look like. So our committee approved that it has to be a neighboring association. To do that, the player's guardians must reach out to their home association, which is based on where they go to school. And we've got a player transfer form posted on the same page that our team composition guidelines are on. But that player transfer form is listed there, and that form needs to be submitted to the player's home association because they need to release that player. As you can see here, the home association does have the right to either approve or deny that request. They do not have to approve the request. And that's for multiple reasons. Could be association is short with players as it is and trying to form one team. And if they lose a player or two, they might not have enough, or trying to have enough players for two teams. So we realize that, there's unique situations in each association. So we want that to be left at the association level. So then once the home association approves it, then that form will travel to the guardian. Will have to present that form to the association where the player wants to transfer to. And there's a spot on there where they can either accept or deny that transfer player. In all these instructions, it's a 2 or 3 page document. Page 1 is instructions. Page 2 lists out the different steps, or has spots to fill in for the board member from the home association, from the association and then where this the association where the player wants to transfer to. Keep in mind, all player transfers are due within the MYAS office for approval by November 1st at the latest. We'd like to see those a lot sooner. But please make sure that they get in prior to November 1st. Prior to this year, player transfers have been limited to 1 transfer player per team. This year, to help ease the transition with the new team composition guidelines, we are allowing a second transfer player to play on the same team. So a team can have up to 2 player transfers playing on the same team. And like I said, that was to help ease the transition with these new guidelines. Maybe there was a player that was eligible for Association A last year, but based on the new or eliminating the residency component, they are not able, or they don't fit within the new guidelines to play with that association that they played with last year. So they can apply or complete the player transfer process. We strongly encourage those neighboring associations to help those players out through this transition. Just keep the communication going. And, if it works to approve that player transfer, to let them play with the association where they've been playing the last couple of years, we highly recommend that you do that. Then Dawson, if you can go to the next slide. This is how we're going to phase out the grandfather policy. So for the 2022/23 season, the bullet point listed under there shows that 4th grade through 8th grade are all going to be allowed to have 2 player transfer players on a single team. And then we're going to phase that out. We wanted to start with 4th grade because, last year there was a lot of associations are having 3rd grade now. So those players started with an association in 3rd grade. We wanted to provide them that opportunity to continue playing with that association if it works for their now new home association and their neighboring association / the association that they played with last year. So we put this grandfather policy in place, And this was also, you know, something that our task force approved and helped put together. And just to make sure everybody knows, when I say we, I'm going to try to cut down on doing that. But when I say we, I'm referring to the task force and this committee. All of the components and the different guidelines here are not things that you know, MYAS is just putting together or forcing onto people. As we mentioned a couple slides ago, that this was put together by a group of the Board of Advisors and approved unanimously by the Board of Advisors. So again, back to this grandfather clause, we're happy that we're able to put this out. And again, when I say we, I mean the task force, just so we could help ease that transition for the players with the new guidelines that are in place. We also this year, the task force approved the residency exception policy. And one thing with that task force is that that they tried to be reasonable in everything that they've done. We want to maintain that community-based component of winter traveling basketball, but they also realize that there's situations that do warrant an exception. One of those is the player transfer policy. The other one is the residency exception policy. And this pertains to a player who goes to school, or actually, I'll back up. He lives within an association or inside an attendance area for an association, but the school that he attends does not border the association where he goes to school. You know, I know one example that was brought up a couple of years ago is that a player, his mom or dad taught at a school that was didn't border where they lived, and that kid, still wanted to play with the association where he lived. And so to help that situation, we created, or the residency exception policy was created. With this, we do need, as you see the last bullet point in there, we do need to see documentation from the player's home, or from where they go to school, which is their home association. We do need to see documentation from that school that proves residency to where they're saying they live. So again, the residency exception is for a player that lives in an association that does not border the association where they attend school, but they want to play back with the association where they live. We used Anoka and Stillwater in our example here. And in this example, the player lives in Stillwater, goes to school in Anoka. This exception would allow that player to play with Stillwater. But we got to see documentation from his school, which is one of the Anoka Hennepin schools, that lists his address that they have on file as being within the Stillwater attendance area. We've also got a form that spells out in a little bit more detail all of the components of the residency exception policy. And then it lists the steps on there as well, the different spots for the guardian to fill in to complete that residency exception. All right, so June 1, the task force rolled out the new team composition guidelines, and they were emailed to all of the association leaders, the board member association admins of every MYBA member association. So that was, putting them together was step one, communicating them to the association leaders was step two. Here we are in step three, kind of going over in a little finer detail in a meeting tonight. Step four is going to be communicating the new guidelines to all the players that are in our database. All the players that played in our state tournament, all of the teams that are loaded into the MYBA portal will be able to send an email to the family email address informing them of the new team composition guidelines and provide them some direction on choosing, an association that that now works for them and that they're eligible to play for. We also encourage the association leaders to reach out and communicate with the players that participated in their association last year to notify them of the changes. At that point, you can figure out if maybe the player transfer policy is a route you want to go with a player that is maybe, by the new guidelines, no longer eligible to play with your association. Just get the ball rolling with the player transfer policy at that point. And then the residency exception too, if that's something that fits for you. But we want to get this information out as soon as possible, make sure the players' families are aware of it, so they can plan accordingly, and we're not stuck at tryouts, with a bunch of registered young athletes that are trying out for association that they're not eligible for. So this time of year, the communication from both MYS acting on behalf of the MYBA Board of Advisors and also the association leaders, getting communication out is very important. One thing that we would highly recommend that association leaders do is when you're building out your player registration, the registration that a mom, dad, guardian will fill out, signing them up for your association, make sure you list a question there that asks what school they're going to attend for the upcoming school year. And association leaders really monitor that submission just to make sure you kind of flag any of the schools that don't fit within your eligibility parameters, so you can be proactive and get things worked out ahead of time. We'd also highly recommend collecting documentation that verifies what school the player attends. Again, just to make sure that all the players are playing with the association that they're eligible to play for. And in the event that our compliance and eligibility task force does need to do a compliance check, we will need to see documentation that proves which schools the players are attending. So if you can collect that up front or at tryouts or the coach, first practice of the season, that's something that we would highly recommend doing. Next bullet point talks about the collaboration between neighboring associations. Keep that communication going, especially for the player transfer processes, or to let them know, hey, I had this player sign up in our association, realize they're not eligible, we sent them your way, keep your eyes out for them, that sort of thing. Keep that communication going. With all of these guidelines and the exceptions with the player transfer or residency exception, or if you're not sure if this player is eligible or not to play with your association, please reach out to me. Email is by far the best way to get a hold of me. Just shoot me an email and I can get back to you really quick and help get you the answers that you need.
Jeremy, have you determined when the email is going to be sent out to the family email addresses?
We'll get that out the week after the 4th. This week we're, with the task force is going to kind of reconvene, finalize everything, double, triple check our player transfer form, residency exception, that sort of thing. And then by the end of next week, we'll get something sent out to the players. If not sooner, if we can get it out this week, great. But that will be coming very soon. Then our next slide, kind of switching gears a little bit, talks, this is more geared for if there's tournament directors on this call or board members, if you can relay this information to your tournament directors, that'd be great. Just a list of different best practices. First bullet point, get your tournament listed on the MYBA tournament index. Like I said, a ton of traffic on that page. get it up there, get it out there so people can see. Make sure that all the teams participating in your tournament are eligible to do so. If you're unsure, contact me or another MYAS staff member, and we can help check that out for you. Utilize the MYBA playing rules. We really got a great buy-in this past season from a lot of tournament directors that use the MYBA playing rules, which is essentially just standardized playing rules. It helps create consistency, which is fantastic for the players, the coaches, and the officials. If we can keep the playing rules consistent from tournament to tournament, makes things easier for everybody. They don't have to worry about what's fourth grade going to do at this tournament in regards to pressing. What size ball are they going to use? We've got the MYBA playing rules posted on the MYBA webpage. If you aren't using those rules already for your tournament, we highly recommend that you do. We've got 2 different versions, one for running time and one for stop time as well. Utilize Tourney Machine. Tourney Machine is a wonderful platform, and through our partnership with them and the volume of the MYBA, we've got a wonderful deal at $2 per team. And I'll touch base a little bit more on how to get that $2 per team on an upcoming slide. And then too, if you need help with your schedules, for a small fee, per team fee, the MYS staff can help put those together. That'd be a situation where you recruit all the teams, get your division set up, and then if you want some help actually putting those brackets together, we're more than happy to do that for you. Bolded on this page, and we've got over 40 people on this call. If there's one thing that people can take from this call tonight, team identification. We would love for everybody to get on board and utilize the team identification structure that is posted on our website. And this basically, it's your association name, the initial of the gender, the number of the grade, and then a unique identifier, which most associations use a color, a coach's last name, or a number for that, a unique identifier. But this really helps keep teams straight, because there's just so many teams that bounce around from A to B tournaments, B to C tournaments, even some B teams playing up in A and down in C on some weekends. And this will help, different tournament directors when they're figuring out, how to evenly balance the brackets for their tournaments. And also if it comes time for our state tournaments, we'll be able to see, exactly which team from this association was playing in the B division in a particular tournament. Some associations have multiple teams that play at the B level. Some associations have teams that bounce up and down, like I mentioned, between a B and a C. A few years ago, when we really started tracking results, we found that right at about 40% of teams that play during the winter bounce back and forth between different divisions. So to be able to correctly identify, which team that is, we're really hoping people will adopt the team identification structure. So tournament directors, when you get an email from an association saying, we're going to send over 12 teams to your tournament, we want 4A, 4B, 5A, 5C. When you get those kind of notices, please reach back out to them and ask them to properly name each of the teams in those divisions. That would really help everybody out for the winter basketball season. If you're one of the board members who signs teams up for tournaments, please remember when you're sending that email to get into a tournament. If you're sending an email or if you're registering online, please make sure that those teams are properly identified when you are doing so. Das, if you go to the next slide, please. Tourney Machine. So the big change from the last couple of years to this year is that MYBA member associations can create their own account within Tourney Machine. The last couple of years, all of those tournaments were housed under the MYBA umbrella, which was a little, at times tricky for people to get into. And one of the nice things about setting it up on your own is that you can utilize the online registration features that Tourney Machine has. So again, this year, set up your own Tourney Machine accounts, and get your tournaments set up in there, start taking registrations as soon as you can, and get that up and running. To get the reduced $2 per team MYBA rate, we are going to verify that all the teams in your tournament are properly identified. So how that process is going to work, you create your own Tourney Machine account, you get your team set up, your brackets put together, schedule out all the games, and then shoot me an email and say, hey, we've set up our tournaments linked here. We'd like to get that $2 per team rate. The standard rate for using Tourney Machine can be anywhere from $4 to $6 per team. So once you start adding up all those, teams, it's a pretty big savings. So you reach out to me requesting that you get the MYBA rate. I will jump into your tournament and verify or check it out to make sure all the teams are identified properly. If indeed they are, I will reach out to the Tourney Machine staff and request that they give you the $2 per team rate. We'll be able to get that turned around very quickly for you, but please make sure you give us as much notice as you can, and we'll get that turned around and give you that rate. I see there's a couple of questions in the chat regarding the team structure. Again, it's Dawson also linked it directly to the team identification page, but it's association name, gender initial, number of the grade. So Spring Lake Park boys 7th grade would be Spring Lake Park B7, and then the unique identifier with a color, coach's name, number, that sort of thing.
Do you want to touch on Giovanna's quick?
Yeah. Let's see here. As far as compliance and eligibility, do everything you can. We realize there might be something that slips through the cracks. Maybe especially for this first year. As long as it's not program wide, I don't think there's going to be any associations or even teams for that matter, restricted from participating in the state tournament. Do all you guys can to ensure that the players are eligible. Hopefully we don't have to get into a situation like this, but we realize there are mistakes that can happen, and like I said, unless it's a program wide thing where we find out there's multiple violations, I can't speak on behalf or 100% on behalf of the Eligibility and Compliance Task Force, but I don't think anything like that would, as long as it's reasonable, I don't think it would warrant.
That's something that we can shore up with them and get additional information out to understand the process.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to bring Mark Argis in. I know all of you have heard of Youth First over the last few years. They've been a strategic partner of ours at MYS since 2019. And with that, they become a strategic partner of the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance. And we know that there is an extreme shortage of officials, which is a direct result of the conduct and behavior on the sidelines by the parents, coaches. And I think we as the Minnesota Youth Basketball Alliance need to make sure that we are investing in creating the proper environment. So I'm just going to have Mark speak really quickly on a couple points and talk about how you as an MYBA member association can get involved. Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Dawson. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight for just a few minutes. You're probably familiar with some of our conduct program that's been implemented in the grade state tournaments here the last few years. So hopefully you're familiar with a little bit of that. Just a couple quick things. One, as Dawson mentioned, the official shortage is real. If you go out to the, officiallyhuman.com's put a lot of data out recently, and over 50% of officials are 55 years and older in my age group, and only 12% are under 34 years old. So we have a huge gap and kind of what they call a brewing storm coming up here. It was getting short and worse before the pandemic. It's gotten even tighter now. And, the second point is it's a responsibility really of every association, every community to take measures to help educate your parents, coaches, and fans on the importance of sportsmanship and positive conduct. If you imagine two teams of kids, 10, 12-year-olds playing in your tournament this weekend, for example, it only takes one adult, a coach, a fan, to start heckling the officials. And then you have to think about, well, how many of those players would actually want to be an official down the road? And I think what's happened is we've gotten here because so many young people have had that same experience as a player, and it's difficult to get them to be interested in it. So we need to close that gap. And youth sports, of course, is supposed to be about development and the life lessons that you learn, how you respond to adversity or react to it is the lesson that the kids learn. And so as coaches and parents, we have to start modeling that right behavior for the kids, and responding intentionally versus just simply reacting in the heat of the moment. Thirdly, we're hoping that the MYBA members will lead by example and invest in this process with us, creating youth first environments in your local tournament events. It's not enough for us to just do it at the state level. We need to continue to pound that message and bang the drum, if you will, over and over and over, so that it becomes more of a front forward thinking process for everybody. And we're willing to waive our youth first accreditation fee is normally $6 a player for associations. We're going to waive that fee completely for MYBA member associations. We have a package that you can implement youth first environments in your tournaments and local events. It's about $500 to cover all the material costs and those kind of things. And we've learned that the environment has to come first. I mean, we've spent the last 2 years in baseball and softball, for example, with our behind the mask mentoring program. And it's been very, very successful. But what we've learned is you have to put the environment first and then put your new officials and trainees into the environment so they're protected for a little while until they become comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's put it that way. And I know with MYAS, Tony and Carolyn are doing a ton of training, a ton of officiating, recruiting, those kind of things. And don't waste those efforts. If you can put those environments in place in your events, when those new officials come there, the retention rate is much, much higher. And then lastly, we're going to do everything we can along with MYS and our Youth First Alliance partners to promote, support, and recognize your MYBA members and the teams, the roles that you play in local, regional, and state events. I think the teams remember playing in your tournaments if it's a great environment, because it's better for everybody. It's better for the kids, the fans, the officials, the volunteers. It just makes it better for everybody. And that way, they tend to come back. They want to come back and play again in your event. So it's about retention. Also, we're looking at some of our recognition events. We've done a bunch of those this last year. We did some fun stuff with the St. Paul Saints and St. Paul Concordia, after the grade state tournaments. This next year, we're working together with MYS and our strategic partnership to say, okay, for MYBA associations that are holding youth first credited events, we'll do those recognitions on a little bit more of a personal level. Try to make it a bigger deal, get the messaging out into your associations even deeper than we have in the past. And then along with that, we've got a Youth First Alliance review committee now, which will support your local boards in assisting with any incident reports that do come from your events. We've learned that taking that burden off of the local association board and moving it to more of a state level is very effective, which also sends a message to people that just won't comply. And we had a lot of positive feedback this summer in baseball and softball from that. And so we're excited about where that's headed. So if you're interested, reach out to your, your MYBA contact as far as MYAS in basketball. You can also email me, mark.argis@youthfirst.com. I think our information's out there too, but again, excited to be part of this and see what we can do to help everybody.
All right, thank you, Mark. Moving on, and just so everybody understands, I did put the link for the compliance and conduct reporting, and that's kind of what Mark is referring to related to the Conduct Policy and Review Committee. It's an independent third-party review that would make the decisions related to conduct at your tournament so we can have consistency. This also goes into, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, making sure to share incidents of unsportsmanlike conduct or behavior at your tournament. Please make sure you pass that along, because if you don't pass that along, it's going to be an issue at somebody else's tournament too. So we are all in this together, and it's better that we can nip things like that in the bud right away so everybody can have a safe, positive, and productive environment when they are participating in your event and ultimately at our grade state championships. All right, thank you, Mark. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn Dirksen. She's an MYS team member. She is the Assistant Director of Officiating and Administration. She was also a collegiate football official and high school football official and a collegiate and high school basketball official. So I'll have her touch base on a high level on what her and Tony are doing to provide different things for your organization and also what they're doing for the officials. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you, Dawson. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great night. So like I said, and I love that Mark kind of segue into that too, is that we are working with our training of officials. As Tony and I both took on the role about a year ago, we've done some really great things, especially with going out to local high schools around the area and recruiting high school officials to come and officiate. And Tony, I know he's not on the call right now, but he's done a great job with our baseball umpires and the training that he's done for them. Another thing that also I'll be doing this week too is going out to open gyms of 2 different high school teams and then talking to their high schoolers about getting started in officiating. And just so we can get more officials started in our game. Also, another exciting thing is that with our partnership with the Minnesota State High School League, we are moving to Arbiter Sports as a platform to start assigning officials. And the reason why we decided to move to this and also with partnering up is that a lot of our officials were doing duplicate efforts. And so that's what we'd like to eliminate. And so we are moving towards Arbiter Sports, and we'll hopefully have that up by September 1st. And so it's also, as we've mentioned, that we are getting started with even our training that we want to do for the fall. With our trusted officials, we're looking to have some in-person trainings as well to make sure we can get them started, especially newer officials. And then also offer some on the court as a way to get them started in the game, and also to have clinicians there to evaluate and also just give them feedback, because we all know with being an official right away can be nerve-wracking your first game. So it's nice to have those opportunities to help get them trained and then also get them excited to get on to the court. And so that will start in September and in October, as well as right before the season starts in early November. But also the continuous education we want to do as well as an official, which I've learned over the years, is that you can never stop learning. And so we are going to be offering some continuous education throughout the season, either something you make the call so they can tell us, hey, how was that a travel, or why this was a foul. So we definitely want to give some more education to our officials. And then also, I know this touches a lot on the traveling side, is that with everything I have mentioned, but we also want to know that we'd love to also train your in-house officials. So associations, please let us know when you do have your in-house training for officials. Tony and I would love to come help you out and provide that training for you guys.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate it. A couple of things to note. We do also complimentary. I am a 21-year veteran high school basketball official as well. So between Carolyn, myself, Tony, along with other fellow officials that we know, we'd be happy complimentary to come out to your parent meeting and talk about the official parent relationship along with the coach official relationship, and talk about that dynamic and how we can all establish our role, maintain our role, have our perspective, and make it a fun environment for everybody. So if you want that added to your parent meeting, we'd love to come out and want to note that. As you can see, there is a flyer on the right side of your screen. That is something that Carolyn and Tony are going to be distributing out to all of you leaders of organizations. This is a old school term, I'll throw out, propaganda for you to promote officiating inside your community, to pass along to your membership, to try to engage in individuals that want to give back to the game and still be a part of basketball if they have a passion for that. We need to do all we can to recruit the officials. As you can hear, we are committed to training and education. We know that youth traveling officials need continuous education. They need continued training to help them improve on what they're doing as well. That's something that I don't know if it has been a focus, and we want to get back to that to, again, create a great experience for everybody involved. Last note, trusted assigners. This came out last year briefly, but trusted assigners is a way to promote the assigners that are part of our network at the MYAS, and along with others that are committed to providing training, screening, education for their officials. That may be from the Minnesota State High School League or from our trusted officials youth training. This also entails concussion instruction and background checks. So as you are going through to establish who your assigner is this year for your invitational, make sure you ask your assigner if they have their officials complete background checks and if they're compliant in the concussion certification. That's a key thing. We want to make sure that everybody is doing that. That's, again, on all of us to make sure that we have a safe, positive, and productive environment for everybody involved. The other thing to note, we do have on the benefits page of the MYBA, there is a listing and a spreadsheet that lists out game fees. The game fees were established last year by the trusted assigners. And it's got 5 more years of what pay would be based on the tournament type. We would strongly encourage all of you to try to maintain that in every tournament that you are running inside your association, because pretty soon the fees will get ballooned out, and which means that has to go somewhere, and that'll accelerate the tournament entry fees with the admissions or no gate fee that's already connected to many of them. It's already extremely high. And so we need to try to maintain that as much as we can. At the high school level, they do that where all the associations or assigning secretaries are working together to increase fees gradually. So there's an understanding by all the high schools and the districts on what pays would be. And we would hope that that would be the case too. Because what happens is one weekend, we may have an assigner paying out $32 a game and another assigner paying out 27 games. And that's not good for the Minnesota youth basketball community. So please keep that in mind as you move forward into working things out with your assigner that you're going to be utilizing for your games. All right, just some things really quick to pass along. We are going to have coaches clinics in mid-October at a couple different locations. Looking forward to that again. We had some good participation from MYBA member associations. It'll be an extremely reduced rate because we want to get training to your coaches, so you don't have to worry about that. If it's your traveling and in-house coaches, we have that option. The educational arm of MYS Trusted Coaches is available. I believe about 80% of the associations that are part of the MYBA utilize Trusted Coaches, but it is an amazing platform that has been updated and enhanced and is a great opportunity for you to get training, screening, education completed in an efficient and effective manner. And it has a great admin dashboard that you can easily track and manage completion dates. We have a Rising Stars Association development that you could utilize throughout the preseason and into your season. Instead of possibly participating in a 10th and 11th tournament, you could do team camps as an option to focus on development and training. Some of the other things that we have is the MYBA Jamboree Kickoff event on October 29th. That'll be held at Moundsview, Irondale, and Osseo High Schools. We have a cool series called the Invitational Tournaments and Grade State Remixes that would be held October 30th, along with on MLK Day. And we also have a new event on President's Day that'll be called the MYBA Clash of Champions, which is an invite for the champions of your invitational tournaments. We have been able to successfully administer a number of in-house basketball leagues, one notably called the Northern Twin Cities Basketball League in the North Metro, where the MYS provides our administrative service, and we are the ones responsible for scheduling, maintaining the schedules, help assisting with the assignment of the officials. So if you're looking for consistency in who is administering your in-house basketball league with neighboring associations, we're here to serve you. And just look for some other tournaments, events, offerings that we're gonna get out here really soon that may be a great option for all of your association teams. All right, with that being said, that concludes the meeting. We apologize for going over. It was a lot of information. We strongly encourage all of you to digest this. We'll have it on video tomorrow. It's being recorded right now. And we will have that available for you to distribute to your fellow board members. If you have additional questions, do not hesitate, primarily to jeremy@mys.org, but feel free to email me. If I can't get you the answer, I will, or just our general basketball@mys.org email address that'll go to all 4 of the basketball department members, and they would be able to help you as well. So with that being said, we thank you for your time and dedication to youth basketball. We are here to serve and protect winter community-based youth basketball, and we're here to work with you each and every day. We're here right all the time, 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, and we're always available via email. We're located in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota. So again, thank you for your time and dedication. Look forward to talking to you, and don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great evening.